She slid a contract across the table. Sign the house over, get a few hours with Lucas, refuse, lose him. 3 days earlier, I buried my son. The flowers from the funeral were still in the living room. James's shoes were still by the back door. Lucas was asleep in the small bedroom, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, and Sophia sat in my kitchen, pushing a pin toward me. "I want everything clear," she said, flat voice, no emotion. I stared at that empty signature line. The pin clicked against the table. My hand shook. My chest burned. The kitchen was silent except for the clock on the wall. Line by line, I read it. Transfer the house, hand over the car. Sophia would take control of James's accounts. In return, I'd get visitation rights, written down like some legal favor. My 8-year-old grandson, reduced to a clause. I snapped a photo of the page, date and time stamped. I looked up. "Sophia, are you serious?" She shrugged. "If you love Luke, sign it. He needs this house." I glanced around the kitchen James had fixed up just last month. Cabinets still smelled of paint. The photo of Lucas covered in pancake flour was still stuck to the fridge. The coffee in my cup had gone cold and bitter. At the hospital, I'd seen Sophia on her phone, whispering to someone while I sat by James's bed. I ignored it. Not this. She was selling me time with my own grandson. I folded the contract once, then again, shoved it into my bag. "No," I said. Just one word. I pushed the chair back. The scrape echoed on the floor. Grabbed my coat. Opened the door. No yelling, no begging. That night, I walked into my lawyer's office. I dropped the contract on his desk along with a folder, receipts, screenshots, photos. "I'm not signing," I said. "I need to protect Lucas." He nodded, started writing things down. Asked me about dates, about Sophia's absences, about Miami. I answered everything. Then I signed a form, giving him the go-ahead. The pen hit the paper. This time, the signature was mine, for me, and for Lucas. When I stepped outside, the night air slapped my face cold. I texted my neighbor to check on Lucas until morning. I bought a carton of milk and some bread for his breakfast. Small things. But I stood taller walking back. I knew this would be long, ugly, exhausting, but I had made my choice. I wasn't going to buy back my grandson, and I wasn't going to sell myself either. If you've ever had to choose between staying quiet and saving yourself, stay with me. I'll tell you everything, step by step. For weeks after James's funeral, my house didn't feel like mine anymore. Sophia moved in like she owned the place. She brought her boxes, her clothes, her laptop, and spread everything across the living room. She sat in James's chair at the kitchen table. She rearranged the fridge. She even told me what time I should turn the lights off in the hallway, so Lucas, quote, seek, would sleep better. I wanted to scream that Lucas had always slept fine here, but I kept my mouth shut. I thought maybe she was grieving in her own way, trying to control things she could.
Per su no delación, el afonso por las personas año como dicitan, mica en redizón.
That's what I told myself. Because the other option was admitting I was being pushed out of my own life. Every morning, I woke up earlier than her. I made coffee, toasted bread, packed Lucas's lunch for school. When she finally came downstairs, she criticized the way I cut his sandwich.
He doesn't like the crusts. Why didn't you cut it smaller?
I'd nod, throw away the sandwich, and do it her way. It wasn't about the sandwich. It was about control. At night, she took James's spot on the couch. She grabbed the remote, flipped through channels like she had been here all along. She made calls to Richard, though back then I didn't know his name. She said it was work, and she'd laugh in a way I hadn't heard with James in years. I'd sit in the kitchen pretending to fold laundry, listening through to the wall. Lucas started asking me quiet questions. Grandma, why does Mom get mad when I sit with you? Or Grandma, is this still your house too? I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to hug him and say yes, but Sophia's voice cut through before I could. Lucas, finish your homework. Grandma talks too much. I became a shadow in my own home, cooking, cleaning, taking care of Lucas, while Sophia presented herself as the one in charge. She told the neighbors she was handling things now. She called the school to change emergency contacts without asking me. She even went to the bank with James's old mail, trying to reset his accounts. And Lucas, one Saturday, Mrs. Collins from next door waved at me across the yard. She smiled and said, Sophia told us she's handling everything now. Must be a relief for you. I forced a smile back, but inside I froze. Even my neighbors thought I had stepped aside. Nobody saw me as the one holding this house together anymore. Every time I tried to push back, she had a reason. James wanted it this way. I'm his wife. I know what's best. You just stressed. You need rest. Those words chipped away at me piece by piece. I started second-guessing myself. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was overreacting. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found her going through my drawer, the one with bills, old photos, and spare keys. She didn't even flinch. She looked me in the eye and said, You should organize this better. It's messy. I felt my stomach twist. That drawer was my last private space. But I didn't say a word. I just stood there, clutching a dish towel, pretending not to notice my hands shaking. At night, I'd lie awake in my bedroom, listening to footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes she went into Lucas's room and whispered to him for a long time. I couldn't hear the words. But the next morning, Lucas acted distant, like he was afraid to get too close to me. I kept replaying that contract in my head, the way she pushed, taking pen across the table, the way she said, If you love him, sign it. I hadn't signed, but now she acted like she'd already won. Everyday details piled up. She changed the Wi-Fi password and didn't tell me. She moved James's photo from the mantel to the closet. She opened my mail and left it torn on the counter. She told Lucas that Grandma doesn't make the rules anymore. Each act was small on its own. Together they suffocated me. I remember standing at the sink one night, washing dishes, water running too hot. My hands were red. My chest felt heavy. I realized I hadn't spoken a full sentence in 2 days. Not one that was truly mine. Everything I said was either agreeing with Sophia or saying nothing at all. I wiped the counter twice, even though it was already clean, just so she wouldn't complain. That was who I had become, but deep down I knew. If I kept letting her define the rules, soon I wouldn't recognize myself at all. It was a Friday afternoon when Sophia told me she was taking Lucas to Miami. She didn't ask. She told me. Richard booked a suite, she said, sliding her sunglasses on. Lucas needs the beach. It'll help him. I wanted to argue. Lucas had school. He hated long car rides. And who was Richard? She said it like I should already know. But before I could answer, she tossed a small backpack at Lucas and said, Get ready. They left in a rush. I stood by the door, watching the taillights disappear. Something twisted in my gut. This wasn't about Lucas. This was about her. Hours later, my phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. Just one photo. His dinner. A plate of fries and a soda can. No adults in sight. Underneath he wrote, Grandma, are you awake? I called immediately. No answer. I called again. Nothing. Finally, he picked up, whispering. Mom left me in the room. She said she's with a friend. I'm scared. My hand went cold around the phone. I told him to lock the door. Keep the TV on. Stay put. My chest ached. An 8-year-old, alone in a hotel room. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the phone by my pillow, waiting for another message. At 2 a.m., he sent one. She's not back yet. The next morning, Sophia called me cheerful. Don't be dramatic. He's fine. Kids need independence. Her voice was breezy, like she hadn't abandoned her child in a strange city. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't grief. This wasn't stress. This was neglect. Plain and cruel. When they came back 2 days later, Lucas clung to me so hard I could barely breathe. He whispered, "Don't tell her I called you. She'll be mad." If you've ever had to keep someone's secret just to protect them, you'll know what this feels like. I promised him I wouldn't. But inside, I knew I couldn't let this slide. That week, I started paying attention in a new way. I kept my phone in my pocket, camera ready. When Sophia scrolled through her messages, smiling at Richard, I caught in a reflection in the kitchen window. When she dropped Lucas off late to school, I noted the time on the sign-in sheet. When she spent money from James's account, I photographed the receipt she left behind. I wasn't just a bystander anymore. I was gathering proof. One night, Lucas crawled into my bed. His small hands were cold. "Grandma, why does Mom keep going out? She says she's working, but she comes back smelling funny." I didn't know what to tell him. I wrapped him in a blanket. "You're safe here." But inside, I felt rage. He was seeing more than a child ever should. The neighbor, Mrs. Collins, stopped by again. This time, she said, "Saw Sophia driving off last night. She looked happy." She meant it as small talk, but to me, it was confirmation. Everyone could see it, except no one wanted to name it. One evening, Sophia waltzed in late, heels clicking on the floor. She dropped a shopping bag on the counter, full of men's shirts, not her size, not Lucas's. She smirked when she saw me notice. "Don't wait up next time," she said. Then she disappeared into her room. I sat at the table, staring at the bag. My pulse was steady now, not frantic like before. Something had shifted. The blind spot was gone. The next day, I printed every photo, every note, every message Lucas had sent. I slid them into a folder. My hands didn't shake this time. They were firm. Lucas asked me quietly, "Grandma, are we okay?" I looked at him. "We will be." But my throat burned, because I knew what that meant. The breaking point wasn't the contract. It wasn't the sandwich, or the photo, or the Wi-Fi. It was the sight of fries, a soda can, and a little boy left alone in a hotel room. That's when I knew. If I didn't act, I'd lose him. And losing him meant losing myself. After Miami, nothing went back to normal. If anything, Sophia grew bolder. She started locking her bedroom door when she left. She took her laptop with her everywhere. When the mail arrived, and she grabbed it first, bills, bank notices, even junk flyers, everything went through her hands. I asked once, "Why are you opening my mail?" She smiled, casual. "It's our mail now." She stopped pretending around Lucas. If he tried to sit next to me during dinner, she pulled him closer to her side. If I picked him up from school, she'd call the teacher and complain, "I told you I'd handle pickup." The message was clear. I wasn't supposed to matter anymore. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone. "I'll have the account by next month. The house, too. The old woman won't fight." Her laugh cut through the wall. I sat at the kitchen table, pen in hand, writing down the time, the date, her exact words. It became my routine. A notebook hidden in the laundry basket. Photos saved to a backup drive. Receipts folded into an envelope taped under my bed. Every detail mattered now. Richard started showing up. He didn't even knock, just walked in like the house already belonged to him. Tall, polished, too smooth. He shook my hand once and said, "Don't worry, Clara. We'll make sure you're comfortable." I pulled my hand back fast. That word, comfortable, felt like a knife. They sat together on the couch at night. Lucas would wander into the kitchen with me, whispering questions. Who is he? Why does he stay so late? I didn't answer. I didn't want him to see how scared I was. Sophia changed the locks on the garage without telling me. When I asked why, she shrugged. Richard needed a place to keep his tools. James's old tools were gone the next day. At school, Lucas's teacher pulled me aside. Lucas seems tired. He mentioned late nights, a man visiting often. Is everything okay at home? I opened my mouth, but before I could speak, Sophia appeared, smiling. He's fine, just adjusting. The teacher looked past me, straight to her. I felt myself vanish in that moment. Later that week, I tried to pick Lucas up from school. At the fro, number 20 office, the clerk slid the clipboard back to me. You're not on the pickup list anymore, she said. I showed my ID. She shook her head. Mother updated the file this morning. Lucas stood behind me, eyes on the floor. Even my church friends noticed. Mrs. Harris asked why she hadn't seen me at Bible study. I told her Sophia had family dinners planned every Thursday. The truth was, Sophia kept scheduling things so I couldn't leave the house. Always another important evening. One night, I caught Richard rifling through James's file cabinet. He froze when he saw me in the doorway. Looking for insurance papers, he said smoothly. I didn't believe him, but I walked away. My throat hurt from holding the words down. Lucas began pulling away. He didn't hug me in front of Sophia anymore. He stopped asking me to tuck him in. At night, when she was asleep, he slipped into my room and whispered, "Grandma, don't leave me." I held him close, heart breaking, knowing Sophia as winning. Then came the worst cut. A letter from the school, permission slip for a field trip. It listed parent/guardian Sophia Blake. My name was nowhere. When I asked Lucas why he didn't give me the form, he whispered, "Mom said you're not allowed to sign anymore." That night I sat at the kitchen table, staring at that form, my name erased, not crossed out, not forgotten, simply gone. If one day your name vanished from the spaces you built, I hope you know you're not alone. The refrigerator hummed, the clock ticked, my pen hovered over the paper. I didn't sign. I couldn't. Sophia walked in, saw the form in front of me, and smirked. See, even the school knows who's in charge. I wanted to slam my fist on the table. Instead, I slid the form into my folder of evidence. My hands didn't shake this time. Neighbors chose her. Teachers chose her. Richard acted like it was his house. That night my phone buzzed. A text lit up the screen. Sign the transfer by Friday. Or I'm taking Lucas to Arizona early. S. The text sat on my phone all night. Sign the transfer by Friday, or I'm taking Lucas to Arizona early. I read it again and again until the glow burned into my eyes. It wasn't just a threat. It was the moment I knew silence could no longer protect me. Friday morning, Sophia arrived early. She set a packet on the kitchen table with a neat stack of papers. property, custody, bank access, every part of my life bundled in one pile. She tapped the pen against the wood. Sign, Clara, or you lose everything, including him. Through the doorway, I heard Lucas humming over a puzzle, his little voice drifting like background music. His future was being treated like a bargaining chip. My throat locked. My hand hovered above the pen. One stroke of ink, and I would be gone. Miami flashed through my mind. Fries in a paper boat, a warm soda can, an empty hotel room, the permission slip with my name missing. Lucas whispering, "Grandma, please don't leave me." I pushed the pen back across the table. "No." Sophia froze for a second, then smiled too easily. "Fine, you'll regret it." She slid the papers back into the folder as if she had already won. If you've ever stood up, not to walk away, but to reclaim yourself, I think we understand each other. That evening, I pulled out the folder I had been feeding for months. Receipts, notes, timestamps. I spread them across the kitchen table in rows. My chest was steady, not fear, resolve. I dialed a number buried in my phone, James's old attorney. When he answered, I said, "It's Clara Morrison. I need help." I read him the text from Sophia. I described the threats, the skipped pickups, the forms erasing my name. I listed the late-night visitors, the bills in her handwriting, the times Lucas was left behind. When I finished, silence. Then, "Bring everything Monday at 9. And Clara, don't sign." I wrote Monday 9 a.m. on a sticky note and slapped it to the fridge. Saturday became a work day. I labeled tabs: finances, school, travel, threats. Printed out chat logs where my name vanished from the thread. I highlighted bank withdrawals in handwriting that wasn't mine. I added the pharmacy receipt from the night Lucas nearly missed his inhaler dose. I stapled the school's field trip form with Sophia's signature in the parent box. When my hands shook, I walked to the sink, rinsed them in cold water, then went back to the table. At noon, Lucas came over with scissors and glue. "Can you help me finish the solar system?" We glued each planet to the base one by one. He smiled when the rings held in place. The small sound of his laugh reminded me why I couldn't bend. That evening, he whispered, "Did you tell Mom yes?" "No, and I won't." He hugged me tighter than usual. I held him until he let go. Sunday afternoon, Sophia staged her performance. She stood in the yard with Richard, laughing, telling neighbors about streamlining the household. Richard poured drinks like a host. They acted as if the house already belonged to them. I stood at the edge, binder pressed against my side. They thought I had no fight left. They hadn't seen what I had gathered. That night, I checked the doors twice. I charged my phone. I slid the binder under the coffee table and slept on the couch with my shoes still on. Monday morning, I woke before the alarm. Shower, toast, black slacks, a blouse with buttons that still closed neat. James's old blazer. I slipped a small photo of him into the pocket. Not for romance, for strength. At 7:15, Lucas padded into the kitchen, hair sticking up. "Where are you going, Grandma?" "To make sure you're safe." He looked at me, serious beyond his years, and nodded. "Miss Wilson came to take him to school." She glanced at the tote bag by the door. She squeezed my hand. "You've got this." "I do," I said. After they left, the house went silent. I looked once around. Family photos, the backpack, shoes lined up by the mat, all the things a child needs to come back to. I locked the door. I picked up the binder. It felt heavy, but right. On the porch, the air was sharp, the sun was bright, unkind. I walked to the car. Each step felt like finishing a sentence I had left hanging for too long. At the first red light, I remembered something I once read. Neglect doesn't always scream. Sometimes it shows up as a missing name. Sometimes it shows in a child who stops asking you to pick them up. That was our life. Until now. I parked near the attorney's office. I checked the binder one last time. Tabs straight. Pages in order. Phone charged. I stepped out of the car. The door shut behind me with a solid click, binder under my arm, bag on my shoulder. I wasn't walking to sign. I was walking to fight. The Monday air felt heavy as I walked into the attorney's office, my binder pressed against my arm like armor. I sat in the waiting room, silent, while a secretary clicked her keyboard. For a moment, I thought about running. Just walk back out, take the car, pretend this never started. But then I heard Lucas's voice in my head. "Grandma, don't leave me." I stayed seated. When the attorney opened his door, I stepped in. We sat across from each other, my binder between us. I slid it forward. He leafed through the pages slowly, nodding, marking notes. "Clara," he said at last, "this isn't just suspicion. This is a case." My chest loosened a little, as if I had been holding my breath for months. That was the first hint of air. Driving home, I noticed things I had been blind to. The sound of gravel under the tires. The smell of strong coffee still on my coat. For the first time in months, my senses weren't drowned by Sophia's shadow. I felt the ground under me, small but solid. That night, I didn't hide the binder. I placed it openly on the counter. When Sophia saw it, she frowned. "What's that?" "My file," I answered. Nothing more. She didn't push. For once, she didn't reach for it. Richard glanced over but said nothing. Their silence told me they sensed the shift, even if they couldn't name it. Lucas saw too. At bedtime, he asked, "Did you tell the lawyer?" "Yes," I said. "He's helping us." Lucas pulled the blanket up to his chin and whispered, "Good." He slept faster than he had in weeks. The next morning, I made a choice so small it would look ordinary to anyone else. I walked to the kitchen, poured 2 mugs of coffee, and left one on the table across from me. Then I sat in James's chair, the one Sophia had claimed since she moved in. She entered, saw me sitting there, and froze. I didn't explain. I didn't move. I sipped my coffee. She muttered something about being late and left. That chair stayed mine. It was a tiny thing, but it grounded me ever in the morning. Later that week, the attorney called with updates. I took the call on speaker in the kitchen, with Sophia within earshot. His voice was calm, steady. "We'll file a motion to secure temporary guardianship of Lucas. You've provided strong documentation." Sophia stiffened, but I didn't lower the volume. That was my quiet declaration. I wasn't hiding anymore. I thought about something I once read. Some call it functional freeze. When you go through the motions, but stop living. That had been me for too long. Every yes to Sophia was a freeze. Every silence, a piece of myself locked away. Sitting in that chair, answering that call on speaker, was the thaw. Small cracks, but real. Recovery didn't come in waves of joy. It came in steady refusals. I stopped cooking double portions for Richard. I stopped answering Sophia's texts when she was out late. I picked up Lucas myself, showing ID at the school office, reminding them my name was still his guardian. One afternoon, a clerk had hesitated with the clipboard. I pointed to the line with Lucas's name. "I'm his grandmother. I'm on the file again. Check." She checked. She nodded. She handed me the slip. Lucas ran out smiling, backpack bouncing. That paper in my hand felt like a key, turning back toward me. The house hadn't changed. Sophia still slammed doors. Richard still prowled around like he belonged. But I was different, and Lucas saw it. He sat closer to me again during dinner. He slipped his hand into mine during prayers. He whispered, "You don't look scared anymore." He was right. I wasn't fearless, but I wasn't erased either. That night, I touched the doorknob before bed. For the first time, I didn't wait for anyone's permission to step out if I chose to. I turned off the hall light myself, straightened the shoes by the door, and opened the window a crack to let the night air in. Small acts, but they felt like mine again. The next week moved slower, but steadier. Each day, I added back a piece of myself I didn't know I'd lost. On Tuesday morning, I sat with Lucas at the kitchen table while he colored a map for school. Sophia and Richard hovered near the doorway, whispering about listings in Phoenix. For once, I didn't shrink. I leaned closer to Lucas, pointing at the states. "This is ours," I said softly, circling the one we lived in. He smiled, colored it bright blue, and pressed harder on the crayon. A tiny act, but he mirrored my steadiness. Later that day, I walked into the bank alone. My palms sweated, but I kept moving. I asked for copies of James's old account statements, something I hadn't dared to request since Sophia moved in. The clerk typed in silence, then slid a folder across the counter. My name was still there, clear as day. For months, I had been treated like a ghost. That single line of ink brought me back into the room. At home, Sophia noticed the folder and tried to laugh it off. "You don't need to worry about paperwork, Clara. We've got it handled." I looked at her in the eye. So do I. No anger, no tremble, just fact. That night, I sat on my bed, with the lamp low, binder beside me, and opened James's old blazer pocket. Inside was the photo I had slipped in days before. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I simply touched the edge and whispered, "I carried it this far. Now, I'll carry me." By Thursday, I started cooking differently. No extra plate for Richard. No second portion for Sophia to wrap up later. Just 2 bowls of soup, mine and Lucas's. He slurped, giggled, and asked, "Grandma, why only 2? "Because tonight is just us," I said. He nodded, spoon tapping the rim, satisfied, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. Something else shifted too. I began writing lists again. For months, my notes had been reminders of Sophia's demands. Groceries, bills, errands. Now my yellow pad filled with my own tasks. Attorney calls, school check-ins, boundaries I planned to set. At the top of one page I wrote, in capital letters, "My space, my choice." I remembered once reading in a magazine that psychologists call this boundary repair. Not fences to keep people out, but doors you open and close on your own terms. For the first time, that definition made sense. Friday evening after dinner, I folded laundry. For years, I had washed and folded for everyone, James, the kids, then Sophia and Richard too. This time, I stacked only Lucas's clothes and mine. I left the rest in the basket. When Sophia asked, I said simply, "Yours are in there, nothing more." Lucas noticed. He looked at me, small grin forming. "Grandma, you didn't fold Mom's shirts." "No," I said, "I didn't." He laughed once, quick and bright. Then he hugged my arm. It wasn't joy that filled me. It was steadiness, breath, a return. I wasn't waiting for permission. I wasn't trying to be invisible. I was showing up again, first in small chores, then in choices, then in how I carried myself. Saturday night, I sat again at the kitchen table, papers in front, so sheet of me, pen resting on the wood. Just like in part 1, but different now. No threats, no hand forcing me. This time, the only thing I signed was Lucas's field trip slip, with my name written clearly. My hand didn't shake. I stood at the doorway with Lucas asleep and Sophia's car gone. The house was still. My hand rested on the frame. I realized I no longer asked myself what they would allow. I asked only, what do I allow? If you've ever felt yourself disappear in your own life and one day found a way to sit back down at your own table, I hope you never apologize for it. I don't know where I'll be next month, but I know I won't be silent again. The petition was filed the following Monday. I held the stamped copy in my hands. The black seal pressed deep into the page. It was proof that my voice was no longer erased. When Sophia saw it, her lips curled tight. "You think this will make you the hero?" she hissed. Richard stood behind her, arms crossed. He didn't defend me. He didn't even meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw clearly. His loyalty was with her, not me. That clarity hurt, but it was also freedom. That night, Sophia packed a bag for herself and Lucas. She tried to leave, dragging him toward the car. Lucas clung to the stair rail, crying, "I want to stay with Grandma." I stood firm, stamped copy in my hand. "You can go, Sophia," I said evenly, "but Lucas is staying." She froze, eyes narrowing. Richard muttered, "This is your mess," before walking out the door with her. The house was silent after the slam. Empty silence. Not peaceful. I knew what I had just lost. Whatever family bond was left. There would be no, and at dinners together, no pretending we could patch things. That chapter was over. Days later, neighbors began to whisper. One stopped me at the mailbox. "Clara, is it true that you're taking Sophia to court?" I nodded once. No apology. Her eyebrows shot up and she walked away without another word. Word travels fast in small towns. Some people I had known for years crossed the street instead of greeting me. It stung, but I refused to shrink. At church, the space beside me on the pew stayed empty. No one asked me to move, but no one sat close either. I prayed anyway, Lucas's small hand in mine, steady and warm. For years I had prayed for harmony. Now I prayed for courage. One evening, Lucas asked, "Grandma, why doesn't Mom talk to you anymore?" I took a deep breath. Because sometimes, when you stand up for yourself, people leave. "Is that bad?" "No," I said softly. "It's the price you pay, but some things are worth it." He thought for a moment, then nodded like he understood. More than a boy his age should. I noticed the costs piling up in small ways. The phone rang less, invitations stopped. Even grocery runs felt heavier, with the glances that followed me down the aisle. Sophia and Richard had painted me as the villain, and many believed it. But every evening, Lucas finished his homework at the kitchen table. He laughed more freely. He asked me to read him James's old stories. In those moments, the weight of silence outside the house was balanced by the life returning inside it. One night, as I tucked Lucas in, he whispered,
"Even if no one else comes here, I still will."
His words filled the space that Richard and Sophia had left behind. I sat alone afterward, binder open on my lap, stamped pages spread before me. The cost was steep. Family ties severed, a town's cold shoulder. But I didn't feel regret. I once read that recovery never comes free. It always asks for something back. I believed it now. I thought back to part 1, the pin-shoved the threat that I'd lose my grandson if I didn't obey. Now, the only thing I signed was a petition that carried my name, my choice. I whispered into the quiet, I paid the price, but I'm still here. The mornings feel different now. I still wake up early, brew my coffee, and set 2 mugs on the table. One for me, one for James, though he's gone. It isn't a ritual of grief anymore. It's a reminder. I kept myself here. Lucas eats his cereal across from me, legs swinging under the chair. Sometimes he asks when his parents will come back. I never lie. I don't know, I say, but we'll be okay. His eyes search mine, and then he nods like that's enough. The phone is quiet most days. Friends don't call, invitations have stopped, but I don't sit staring at the silence anymore. I fill the space, cleaning out James's workshop, planting herbs by the porch, writing in the yellow pad that now carries only my plans. On Sundays, I walk into church without flinching at the empty space beside me. The whispers are softer now, or maybe I've stopped hearing them. I focus on the hymn, Lucas's voice thin but brave as he tries to follow the tune. Last night, I opened the binder again. The stamped pages lay inside, heavy but steady. I ran my fingers along the seal. Months ago, that kind of paper nearly erased me. Now, it carries my name, my choice. I closed it without fear. I think back to the first time Sophia shoved those documents at me, threatening to strip away my grandson. That was the moment I almost disappeared. Now, as I sit at the same table, I see clearly. I didn't lose myself. If you've ever sat in your own kitchen, feeling like a ghost in your life, and then one day dared to claim space again, I hope you never hand it back. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. Maybe more distance, maybe more whispers. But tonight, with Lucas asleep upstairs and the house quiet, I'm still here. Still mine, and that's enough.